Greetings, welcome to my channel. My name is Bulali, and as you can see, I'm locked down in France, Paris. So, a couple of days I was on Twitter and I thought, what are we all going to do during this period of lockdown? And I thought, okay, maybe let's all share a little bit of what we know, whether it be professional expertise or, just gym or interests. People are going to be at home, they're going to be wondering what's happening, and a lot of things I think we could all help each other a bit by sharing whatever we know. So I've decided to engage on some of the legal consequences that are going to come from this quarantine period. I'm sure a lot of people definitely had a lot of things booked and arranged, and for this period, even the Easter period, and a lot of businesses have shut down, airlines have stopped operating, hotels have shut down. So what are the legal consequences of that? I'm a bit worried about it because at the moment it's all sort of nation building, let's save the nation. But I mean, there's going to come a time where the real consequences, the real financial crunch starts to come from this period, and people, disputes could quite easily arise. So let's talk about that legally. When you buy a ticket with the airline, you book a hotel, that is a contract between you and the service provider. Now, a contract creates obligations on both parties, on what's the creditor and the debtor of the contract. The creditor is usually the customer. You've paid, you've booked, you've paid, and now the business owes you that service, which is why they're called the debtor. So what happens when that service is not given to you? And in this case, you probably don't even want it anymore, and the place is also unable to give it to you. So in a contract, there are a couple of requirements. There are a few basic fundamental requirements, which mainly relate to capacity, your contractual capacity. You need to know what you're doing. You need to be in your right mind. You need to know what you're agreeing to, because a contract is merely an agreement. So now we've all entered in these contracts and we've all cancelled, or the airlines have cancelled. What is the legal consequence of that? One of the requirements of a contract is that performance from the debtor of the contract must be possible. What does that mean? It means whatever you agree to within that contract must actually be possible, physically possible, and also legally possible, factually possible, legally possible. So if we sign a contract that requires me, a human being, to jump over the moon, for instance, that contract is void ab initio. It is a void from the time it was signed, because at the time it was signed, it was impossible for me to jump over the moon. So that there was never a contract there. It was void from the start. What has happened here, but even within the requirement of possibility, there's two levels. There's void initial impossibility, and what's more relevant to now is there is supervening impossibility of performance. That means between the time the contract was signed and the time the contract was to be performed, something has happened to make the contract impossible. Going personally, I had a flight booked for the 8th of April. That's not going to happen anymore. It's become impossible due to a supervening event. After I booked the contract, something happened to make the airline unable to fly me to Joburg. So that contract has become impossible. And the consequence of supervening impossibility of performance is that the contract is then voided after it's been entered into. And that means both parties need to, whatever performance has been rendered, I've paid, and the airline should give me my money back. Now, a lot of people are going to be in those positions. And, as in law, nothing is ever clean cut. Nothing is ever basic and clean cut. They're going to be very specific technicalities relating to certain types of businesses, certain people who are exempt from lockdown, but also people don't really want to do certain things anymore. So even if someone is actually open, you may not want to do whatever activity you were going to do under these consequences. Also, there was a time, we didn't go straight from everything being normal to lockdown, there was first a period where the president spoke on a Sunday, the Sunday before he declared the lockdown, and he said interprovincial travel is discouraged and unnecessary travel is discouraged. Now, that's going to create a gray area because during that time, that's actually when I canceled my trip before an actual official lockdown. So I think it's going to be interesting, I think things are going to get a bit complicated. I think initially everyone's sort of in a very understanding frame of mind. But when the lockdown is lifted, I don't think people are going to immediately, everything's just going to snap and go back to normal. I mean, I think the lockdown is going to be lifted on the 16th of April. And if you had a holiday booked for, I think the 16th of April is a Wednesday. If you had a holiday booked for that Friday, are you really going to want to take that holiday? I don't think so. But that business that has lost a month of income, they're going to want to hold you to that contract because at that point, the contract won't actually be impossible. So yeah, I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to lead to a lot of litigation. People are going to be disgruntled. A lot of people are not going to want to do things even though they may not be possible. They may be possible at that point in time. But for now, this period, you are talking about impossibility of performance due to what they call a vis major or something like that. It's a Latin term for a superior force. It's actually usually for natural disasters. If you had booked into a hotel and the hotel got washed away by a tsunami, that would be a vis major. So yeah, I think it's gonna be quite a topical issue in the coming period. And I hope there's something you can learn from this video that's going to help you deal with whether you are a service provider or you had bought a service. I hope there's something in this video that will help you. And I'll encourage all my other Twitter people to tell us something that we don't know that might help us navigate this period a bit better. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe.